This is absolutely heartbreaking news that has just broken in the last few hours. Lud de Jager, the Springbok World Cup winning lock, is facing 6 to 12 months on the sidelines after undergoing hip surgery in a devastating blow that could see him miss the entire 2026 international season. The 33-year-old will miss the mid-year tests, potentially miss all 4 battles against the All Blacks, and at his age, there are genuine questions about whether he can even come back from this. Before we dive into this tragic story, you need to smash that subscribe button right now, hit the notification bell, drop a like, and comment sending your support to Lud. Let's get into this devastating news. The news broke just hours ago that Lud de Jager has undergone hip surgery and is facing a recovery timeline of 6 to 12 months, which is absolutely catastrophic for both the player and the Springboks. Hip surgeries are notoriously difficult for rugby players, especially locks who need explosive power, stability in the scrum, and the ability to jump in lineouts. This isn't a minor setback that he can recover from in a few weeks. This is a major structural surgery that will require months of rehabilitation, careful management, and no guarantees about returning to previous levels of performance. Lud was playing for the Saitama Panasonic Wild Knights in Japan when the injury occurred, and the decision was made that surgery was the only option to properly address the hip problem. The fact that they've opted for surgery rather than trying conservative treatment tells you how serious the underlying issue was. You don't put a 33-year-old professional athlete through major hip surgery unless there's absolutely no alternative, because the risks and recovery timeline are so significant at that age. If you're devastated by this news, hit that like button right now and drop a comment showing your support for Lud de Jager. This man has given everything for the Springboks. The 6 to 12 month recovery timeline is particularly brutal because of what it means for Lud's 2026 season. At the optimistic end, 6 months would see him potentially available for the tail end of the All Black Series in September or the November tour to Europe. But that's assuming everything goes perfectly with rehabilitation, that there are no setbacks, that his body responds ideally to the surgery and recovery process. At 33 years old with his injury history, banking on the optimistic scenario would be naive. The 12-month timeline is probably more realistic, which would mean Lud doesn't return to competitive rugby until early 2027, just months before the World Cup. Let's talk about what Lud de Jager's absence means for the Springboks throughout 2026, because this creates massive problems for Rassie Erasmus's plans and preparations. The mid-year tests in July against England, Scotland, and Wales were supposed to be opportunities for Lud to stake his claim for a starting spot or at minimum secure his position as crucial depth in the second row. Those opportunities are now gone. The 4 epic battles against the All Blacks in August and September, where Lud's physicality and experience would have been invaluable, will almost certainly happen without him. The November tour to Europe, where he could have added grunt and set-piece dominance, he'll be watching from home. What makes this situation even more concerning is that Lud wasn't just a squad player or backup option, he was genuine competition for starting positions in the Springbok second row. His partnership with Eben Etzebeth has been one of the most physically imposing lock combinations in world rugby when both are fit. His ability to provide line-out options, scrum power, and ball-carrying threat made him incredibly valuable to Rassie's system. Losing him for potentially the entire international season removes a key piece from the puzzle that Rassie was assembling for the 2027 World Cup. Make sure you're subscribed because we are breaking down the full impact that mainstream media won't analyze properly. This is serious stuff. The timing is particularly cruel because 2026 was supposed to be a crucial year for Lud to prove his fitness and form ahead of the World Cup. At 33, he knows that this is realistically his last chance to be part of a Springbok World Cup squad. He needed to show Rassie throughout 2026 that his body could handle the demands of Test rugby, that he could stay healthy for extended periods, that he deserved selection ahead of younger options. Now he's missing that entire window of opportunity, and when he does return from surgery, he'll be 34 years old trying to force his way back into a squad that has moved on without him. What makes Lud de Jager's hip surgery even more heartbreaking is that this is just the latest chapter in an injury nightmare that has plagued his entire career and robbed him of years of rugby at the highest level. Lud has suffered multiple serious shoulder injuries requiring surgery. He's had countless rehab periods. He missed the entire 2019 World Cup campaign due to shoulder problems, watching from the sidelines as his teammates lifted the trophy without him. He's battled back from setback after setback, showing incredible mental strength and determination to keep fighting his way back into the Springbok setup. The cruel irony is that Lud finally seemed to have conquered his injury demons in recent years. He was part of the 2023 World Cup winning squad in France, contributing when called upon and proving he could stay healthy through a major tournament. He found a good situation in Japan with Saitama, where the rugby is high quality but perhaps less physically brutal than European leagues. Everything seemed to be going in the right direction for him to have a strong finish to his career. And now this hip surgery threatens to derail everything again. Drop a comment if you think Lud has been one of the unluckiest players in Springbok history when it comes to injuries. This man can't catch a break. There's also the heartbreaking reality that repeated injuries take a cumulative toll on a player's body and mind. Every time Lud has rehabbed from a serious injury, he's had to rebuild strength, regain fitness, work through the psychological fear of re-injury. That's exhausting both physically and mentally. At 33, recovering from hip surgery will be harder than it would have been when he was 25. His body won't heal as quickly, won't respond as well to training, won't bounce back with the same resilience. These are brutal facts that every aging athlete must confront. So what does the future hold for Lud de Jager? And who steps up to fill the massive void he leaves in the Springboks second row? For Lud personally, the focus now is entirely on rehabilitation and recovery. Reports indicate he'll be doing his rehab in South Africa, which makes sense given the expertise of medical staff there and the support systems he has at home. The next 6 to 12 months will be the most challenging of his career, grinding through physio sessions, rebuilding strength gradually, fighting through the pain and frustration of not being able to play the game he loves. The big question hanging over everything is whether Lud can realistically make it back for the 2027 World Cup. If his recovery takes the full 12 months, he'd be returning to rugby in early 2027 at age 34 with virtually no recent test match experience. Would Rassie select him for a World Cup squad based on past performances and reputation alone? Or would he need to prove his fitness and form through club rugby first? And even if Lud gets back to full fitness, will his body be able to handle the intensity of a World Cup campaign at that age after major surgery? These are legitimate questions without clear answers. For the Springboks, Lud's absence creates opportunities for other locks to step up and stake their claims. Eben Etzebeth remains the undisputed king of the second row, but his partner and the depth options are now more wide open. Players like Franco Mostert, Salman Murat, and younger options like Ruan Nortje will get extended opportunities to prove they can handle test rugby at the highest level. This could actually benefit South Africa's depth building in the long run, even though losing Lud hurts in the short term. The other consideration is whether this injury affects Lud's club situation in Japan. Saitama signed him expecting a world-class lock who could lead their pack. Now they're getting a player who will miss most or all of their season. Will they stand by him during the recovery? Will they offer him a contract extension? Or will this hip surgery effectively end his time in Japan? These business realities add another layer of stress and uncertainty to an already difficult situation for Lud and his family. There you have it. Devastating news as Lud de Jager faces 6 to 12 months out after hip surgery, potentially missing the entire 2026 Springbok season. If this broke your heart, smash that like button, subscribe for more Springbok news, and drop a comment sending strength to Lud during his recovery. We are all rooting for you, Lud. Come back stronger.